listening to the Glory to His Name podcast, where, as always, our mission is to encourage, equip, and edify the people of God. Today, Travis is doing an interview with a local business owner named Kevin Eldridge. The business is the Lagrange Service Center, and Kevin, his family, has had that business since the 60s, and in the mid-80s, Kevin bought it from his dad. He's still going strong, a great family-owned business. And the focus that Kevin has, and you'll hear it on the podcast, is customer service. So if you're an entrepreneur thinking about starting a business or already in business and you want to learn a little bit more about customer service, then definitely this is a podcast for you. Now, this podcast is the Master's Mind podcast. This is the other podcast that Travis and I are working on. So the intro here in a little bit going to be a little bit different. This podcast, the Master's Mind podcast, is really focused more on interviews with Christian business leaders and people in the ministry. So we'll have some final thoughts at the end of the podcast. As always, please share this with your friends on social media, YouTube, Facebook, etc. And we're going to let you go ahead and listen to the podcast. Hope you enjoy this. This thing is packed full of content and value bombs. And so we'll have some final thoughts at the end of the podcast. So enjoy listening to Kevin Eldridge, and we'll get back with you at the end.
Hello, listeners. This interview is with Kevin Eldridge, the owner of the Lagrange Service Center in Lagrange, Kentucky, located in Oldham County. This is one of the longest enduring, successful businesses in our county. He has survived amidst a host of corporate franchises that have slowly crept their way into our community. Not only has he survived, but this business continues to thrive. The business is appealing from the road with fresh paint, and the service bays always look clean. It's the only service garage in a large proximity where you get full service at the gas pump. An attendant comes out to pump your gas and attend to whatever you may need. This is a service that was abandoned by most service garages, but not by Lagrange Service Center. You're always greeted promptly when you enter the office for service and do not feel like a faceless number. Kevin spends the money to train his staff, and many are ASC certified mechanics. Not only has this business remained successful, it has maintained a good reputation for honesty and integrity. It's a rare gem in our day and one that needs to be emulated. This is a story of great customer service, and the lessons here could be applied to any business. Enjoy this talk with a great man, Mr. Kevin Eldridge. All right. We're here in Lagrange with Kevin Eldridge from Lagrange Service Center. Kevin's been in business since 1964, and I believe this was your dad's business,
That's
right?
correct.
Okay. I went to school with Kevin's brother, Lynn, and just this business brings back a lot of memories. Kevin, I can remember my mom coming out getting gas at the gas station out front, and you guys doing the service on our cars. I live out in Henry County now. If it was closer, we would still be doing most of our business here, still do some.
Yes.
And you guys, Kevin, I know when I was looking on the internet, you have a great reputation. I'm sure you know that, but reputation for good service, and I think just for caring for customers' needs. And we want to promote that as part of the podcast too. It wasn't an accident that we called you up and stopped by. We're not picking out everybody, but you definitely have some credentials we were looking for. But if you could start out, Kevin, just tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about the business.
Well, my name's Kevin Eldridge. I'm 58. I've been married to my wife since 1985. Been blessed to find a good Christian mate. The business has been here since 1964. My dad opened it, and I started pumping gas here the summer before I turned 11.
No kidding.
Dad had a little ladder, and I'd climb up the ladder and wash windows, pump gas, and whatnot. Went through high school here, and then bought Dad out in 1985, and we've continued it on as a family business ever since.
Okay. Well, fantastic. Kevin, I know you all do a lot of service work here, but what do you think your specialty is here?
As strange as it sounds, we do a lot of service work. We work on a lot of cars, but our specialty really is customer service.
Okay.
One of the things that thrills me the most, we've got a young man, Carter Brown, who has a son, Thomas, that's just started driving, and that'll be the fourth generation of that family that has been doing business here.
And no kidding.
His great-grandfather, his grandfather, his father, and now he.
That's awesome.
And that's just the kind of things we enjoy doing here.
Yeah, I was telling Kevin, just for the listener's sake, when I walked in, kind of like a family reunion. Every time I come in here, I see people who have been in Oldham County forever. One of them was an attorney that used to practice here that lives in Hurstburn now, but is still doing his business here in Lagrange. And that means something when people are driving that far. I was out on the roads this morning at 8 o'clock, and the traffic patterns now are much different than they were when you and I were young, as you can
Absolutely.
imagine. And I know you guys know all about the traffic with the record service, but just the fact that somebody's willing to brave the traffic and come back out here means a lot, Kevin. And customer service is something we want to key in on. I want to ask you a little bit more about that later. But what do you think? You said customer service is your specialty. What's something about that you think our listeners should know about and maybe don't know?
I think the big thing is when you're finding, and not everybody can get to us, so not everybody can be our customer, but when you're looking for anybody to do service work, whether it's at your home or your car or wherever, the main thing is integrity and honesty.
Absolutely.
We had a gentleman actually who used to live here, now lives in Nashville. They were in town last week, and he had gotten a code read in Nashville, showing it had a bad catalytic converter. So we priced him a converter. While he was up from Nashville, he came in to get that done. And when we started on it, we realized that the converter wasn't bad. It was just a connection.
Oh, wow.
So I called him, and his bill went from $1,800 to $800.
Oh, wow.
And it's that kind of thing. He was shocked. He couldn't believe that, why wouldn't we keep the extra $1,000? And that's just the people we are. And it's not just us. There's a lot of people like that in business, but you've got to search them out.
I used to be in the insurance business, and customers, certain lines of work tend to develop a reputation.
Yeah.
And in order to not have that reputation, you really have to stand out as an individual or person. And I know what you're talking about. I had an experience just recently. Actually, it was within the last couple of years, but I had an oil change deal that a garage put on, and it was good. And I understand that. They get in, they look your car over. If they find some other things wrong, they can do that work. And I understand the marketing aspect of that, but the problem was I have a brother-in-law that does a lot of our work. It's a mechanic, has a lift in his garage. It's been a real blessing having him around over the years. But I had just seen my car on the rack the week before, and one of the technicians called me into the garage, this particular garage, and I won't mention where, and told me that I had torn CV boots in the front of my van. Well, the only problem with that was I had just seen it on a rack a week before, and they weren't torn.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they were looking for work, but that wasn't an ethical way to do it.
No.
And I'm thankful for businesses like yours, Kevin, that have a reputation for not being like that, and you can be trustworthy. And again, that has a lot to do with the reason why I'm here today. I've come in before, and you've done some charitable stuff that I'll keep between you and the Lord, right. And I appreciate that. Also, I've brought cars here and had you look them over to see if they would be a good buy. And you've always given me honest advice, and actually told me there have been times you've come in where you alluded to the customer on the phone. I've been that guy myself that you said, no, actually, I don't think you need to do this particular thing. And
right.
You don't know how much I appreciate that. All of us, and fortunately, I think a lot of people have had the experience of going someplace and being taken advantage of.
Absolutely.
And that means a whole lot. Kevin, I know every day hadn't come out of the gate. You don't wake up every day with a mental karate chop to the day. Every day's not perfect. And you've got a successful business, has been for some time. But tell us about, what was one of your most challenging days in business? What did that look like?
It's very odd that you'd be here today asking that, because one of the most challenging days in business I've ever had was just this Monday.
Good.
We had an ice storm here, for those of you that are listening. One of my tow trucks was out on the interstate, and a guy could not get stopped and ran up the back of the tow truck and over the roof of the tow truck and out into the median, like a Dukes of Hazzard jump that you would have seen on TV. And getting that call that my truck had been involved, and then getting there and realizing that my driver was okay.
Yeah.
And the lesson to be learned, I know that's one of the things that you were going to talk about is lessons. the lesson to be learned there is as long as your employees, as long as your family are okay, then the rest will come.
Yeah.
Trucks can be replaced, buildings can be replaced, but you've got to take good care of your people.
That had to be scary. I saw that posted on Facebook from your brother. I believe Lynn put that on there. Couldn't believe it when I saw it. Man, I wasn't sure it was his truck. I didn't know if it was yours or not. So, yeah, unbelievable. So what's a takeaway from that experience that you think people could benefit from? I mean, what's something maybe just, I know you haven't had a lot of time to process it, but.
Well, the takeaway really is just, when you get that call, and of course we're well known here. The first call was from another customer that just happened to see the truck and called. So I immediately called the police, and they told me that it had been involved in the accident. And on the way out there, you're just praying, that everything's okay. And, the thing to take away from that is just, always try to stay calm and realize that there's always things that could be worse.
Well, like you said, with your people being the main focus, that's your concern. And, that's obvious from hearing you talk about it. Kevin, tell us about a great idea that you've had. I mean, something that you feel like benefited the business, something that's helped you out in business, something you think other people might benefit by.
Well, of course, it always comes back to the employees. And it's been probably 12 years ago now. We came up with the idea that we would do profit sharing.
Okay.
So I sat down with all the employees. We had already had 401k plans and all that kind of thing, but we sat down with the employees and said, okay, we're going to share a portion of the profits with you every year. And it's just really made a difference.
That's awesome.
All the employees are here. They know that when they do good, they're going to get, more money at the end of the year, and it's just been a really great program. When things are going great, they'll say, man, we're going to have such a great profit sharing. If things are going poorly, I'll hear them nudging each other, hey, we need to try to, speed this up.
What's something that you're excited about going forward as you're looking down the barrel of where your business is headed?
Well, I'm excited about the next chapter. I'm 58, been very blessed to have good health and been involved and have good employees, but out there somewhere, I'd like to at least be somewhere warmer in the wintertime. And I've got key employees that are going to pick up and continue this on to where that fifth generation can still be doing business here. That's our hope and what I'm excited about going forward.
Fantastic. How many kids do you have, Kevin?
Don't have any children.
Got
an unruly house cat.
Yeah, that's good enough. I've got one of those too. Mine's outside, trapped in the garage before I came. I had to let him out. What do you think for people starting out in business? Sometimes that inertia is the hardest thing to get going. Yeah. And I know you didn't just walk in here and magically everything took care of itself, but what do you think was holding you back from getting started with your dad being here before?
The big thing with any business, whether it's a family business, but you're always going to have overhead costs. At the time that I bought Dad out, one of the things that we knew that was coming was all new tanks. It was the time when the EPA was really pushing on older businesses with underground storage tanks. So we knew going in that we had several $100,000 that was going to have to come up.
That's not cheap. I've seen stations go out of business for that reason.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So it was a matter of deciding, what are we going to do going forward? What is going to be our business plan? And at that point, we had big wreckers as well as small wreckers. And one of the things that we decided to do at that point was to get out of the big wrecker business, concentrate more on the auto repair and the small wreckers, and we used the income from selling those big trucks and move forward with bank loans to get all the new tanks put in. And that's just part of owning a business. You're going to be in debt. And people say, oh, I'm incorporated, if the business goes out. But when you're borrowing money, usually you're having to sign that line personally and corporately.
Right.
So that's a big decision. If you're a young man, especially a young man with a family or a young woman with a family, to put those lives and their livelihood at risk, to step out on your own or to expand a business.
What do you, Kevin, I know when you look back over life, you didn't receive just one good piece of advice. I'm sure you've gotten plenty, but what do you think is one of the best pieces of advice you've ever received?
It wasn't an original by my dad, but I'll put out two. One, Dad would always say that good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment.
Oh, wow.
And I have remembered that over the years.
That's really good.
And another one Dad always said, some of my best friends in coveralls, I value their opinion more than kings of the world.
That's the truth.
And, when you look around, some of our best people over the years have been people that other people would look at and say, oh, that old guy doesn't have any money, or that old guy doesn't know anything. And a lot of times those people are the ones that you should really value.
A lot of wisdom in some of those old guys.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. I've learned that in life. What is a daily habit, Kevin, that you feel like contributes to your success, something that you practice on a regular basis?
Well, of course, daily prayer. But for me, it's getting up early and getting started. On the days that I work, which are still, the majority of the days of the year, I always try to be the first one or the second one here. I think with any business, if you get started in the morning, if there's any problems arise, you're on top of them. If you've got big jobs to do, you're on top of them. It just seems to always work better if you're in the door bright and early first thing. And I would encourage anybody that has a business, to, if you're going to open at 10, get there at 9. Just get there and get a handle. Used to have a bookkeeper that talked about getting your finger on the pulse of the business before the day started, and I think that's very important.
That's good advice. That's real good advice. And along those lines, something I want to mention too, Kevin's also practicing what he preaches. There's a local business owner here at Catlett's. I go up there and get breakfast a lot. We were just having a conversation about you the other day, and he was talking about how you support local businesses. And so Kevin's not just a practitioner here expecting people locally to come by and get their cars serviced. He's also supporting local businesses. And I know he told me that sometimes you come by and buy the employees breakfast.
Right.
I'm sure that means a lot to him.
It does.
And I have seen you in here early, so I definitely think that's good advice for anybody getting started. And, a lot of times now, and I might pivot into that question, a lot of times now I think the kind of rule for business that's being taught and popularly preached, so to speak, is, get it up and running, figure out what's going on, and then hand it off to somebody else so you can go do something else with your life. And I think that mentality is pretty obvious when you go to a lot of businesses. You see that reflected in what goes on. But why, at this point, Kevin, you said you're 58, is what you said? Well, why are you here? What keeps you here?
I just enjoy, even in the beginning when I was a kid, I always enjoyed working with people. And even on the most hectic day, and anybody that's ever been in a business or owns a business knows that there are customers that put the cuss back in customer. But I just enjoy working with people. I enjoy being here. I enjoy seeing those people. My customers and I interact. I've got several customers that read. My wife and I love to read, and they'll bring in books, and I'll bring them books, or they'll check one out at the library, and I'll turn it in, or vice versa. And I just have a lot of interaction with all the customers and enjoy that.
That's fantastic, being a people person.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. That old saying, when the cat's away, the mice will play, but I know your guys are trustworthy. They've been around here for a long time, and I know you're not just here to babysit.
Right. Well, I've been truly blessed in the employee department, and I think that is, and I think you said, that's the key to any business. I've got 9 full-time and 2 part-time people. I've got one guy that's been with me over 40. My office manager, Sharon, has been here almost 30.
Wow.
I have 2 other gentlemen that have been with me over 25. And my guys typically...
Just when you have unexperienced people, everybody's got to learn. Everybody's got to train at some point. Everybody's got to be new. But it helps to have people around that know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Speaking of books, I know your wife's got a bookstore. Is there a book that you'd recommend?
Obviously, there's always, you could recommend the Bible, why not? Greatest book ever written. But also there's a book out, it's been out for several years, called The Butterfly Effect.
Okay.
And it talks about how the fluttering of a butterfly wing on one side of the world can change something on the other. And the message it's trying to tell you is something that may be small to you, to another person today, may make a big impact on their life long term.
Okay.
And it's just a good book. It's a feel-good book, but it lets you realize that something you say may be the best thing that somebody's heard.
That's great. I'm going to pick that book up. Kevin, one of the last questions, we're wrapping things up here, but in the daily grind, you got a business to run. You guys have got a wrecker service. I know you got a recovery yard. You've got service bays. You've got employees to watch after. You got a lot going on here outside of your normal family obligations. How do you step back in the daily grind and put the Lord first in your life? How do you accomplish that?
That is very tough. But one of the things that I started doing, I don't know, it's been 7 or 8 years ago now, and I really don't remember why I started it. But when anybody says, how's your day going, or are you guys busy, I'll always make sure to say, yes, we're very blessed. Probably before that time, I'd say, yes, we've been lucky to stay busy, or we've been lucky.
Sure.
And you've got to just realize that you're not lucky, you're blessed.
Absolutely.
And when you make a habit of saying that anytime anybody asks you, that just reinforces that in your own mind every time you say it.
Sure. It's good for people to hear, too,
right.
Especially in our day. In a world of corporate franchises, Kevin, how do you stand out? I mean, I know we've had some new people move into town and solid businesses, not taking anything away from them, and not just here, other places, but we've got kind of businesses on every corner, and I know I can think of some tire stores out in the certain part of the county where, man, literally it seems like you drive a mile and you're seeing some of the same signs. And how do you stand out in this world? I mean, it's changed a lot since you and I were young. What makes you different?
Well, it absolutely has changed a tremendous amount since we were young, and especially since I was young. But the way you do it is just through customer service. It's how you advertise, how you think about things. We sponsor Little League teams. We sponsor the 4-H shooting club. When the PTA needs a gift basket, or something. And it's by working through local people and working one-on-one. Corporate America, just because of their mere nature, they just can't work one-on-one with local people. And that's how we've made it, and what brings people to us is our one-on-one relationships.
That's fantastic. And not to mention your good work. That definitely doesn't hurt anything either, and reputation for doing the right thing. Let's see here. What is we're talking a lot about customer service and doing good work for people. What do you think would be your definition of good customer service? What's that look like?
Good customer service is 100% honesty, 100% integrity, and going beyond. I had just the other day, I had a lady that we had changed a tire for in the middle of the night. She went the next day to get tires put on at a tire store in Frankfort, of all places. She called me from there and said that the people in the store had said that we had ruined her lug nuts, that we had stripped out her hub.
Oh, wow.
So I told her, I said, okay, can't imagine how we could have done that. We changed the tire by hand with a lug wrench, and my guys aren't Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I told her we'd ride up there. So when I went up to Frankfort, I picked up the car, brought it back to here, we put it up on the rack, and she had a hub run. It was on the right rear, and we'd changed the left rear.
Oh, wow.
I then turned around, called the lady, told her what was going on. She said, well, now that you've told me that, she said, I think I can force them to pay it. So we drove the car back up there and dropped it, and did not charge her anything for the tow. We charged the company that had erroneously told her that. They paid for fuel. But it's just a matter of going out of the way to do things. I was willing to go to Frankfurt thinking maybe we did mess it up.
Sure.
But, became a hero when we showed her, it's not even on the same side of the car we were working on.
Oh, wow.
So that's the kind of things. You've just got to be willing, and typically when we don't think we're at fault, we'll still step up, to make absolute sure.
Sure.
And that's the kind of service you need, whether it's in your plumber or your electrician or your HVAC guy. You've just got to know that they'll stand behind it.
I agree totally. And these are good pieces of advice for our listeners, too. And speaking of that, Kevin, our last question, and we'll let you get back to what you're doing. We sure appreciate you taking the time out to do this today. If you could give our listeners one parting piece of advice and a way that we can get in contact with you.
You can always reach us here at Lagrange Service. It's 502-222-1673. My parting piece of advice would be daily prayer, and just be thankful every day, because you never know when it's going to be your last.
Absolutely. Great advice. That'll be all, folks.
All right.
Well, Travis and I hope you have enjoyed the interview with Kevin Eldridge at the Lagrange Service Center. Wow, that was just an amazing interview. They all are, but just a lot of value bombs, a lot of great content for business owners on just different levels. And so I hope you took some notes, and maybe you want to click back on the podcast, listen to it again sometime, to go through it. If you're like me, after I listen to the podcast or read a book, a lot of times I'll listen again, read the book again, and pick up a lot more that I didn't pick up in the first time I did that. So anyway, great interview Travis did. We appreciate Kevin taking time out of his busy schedule to do that for us. We have got another couple great interviews coming up in the next couple weeks, if everything works out. So pray for us here at the Glory to His Name podcast, and pray that we can get the Master's Mind podcast up and running very soon. And so, as always, we want to encourage, equip, and edify the people of God. So until next time, tell somebody about Jesus, and we'll catch you on the next podcast.